welcome to Spotted News. My name is Faith JELAGAT and we welcome our viewers in Kenya and around the world. Now on this program we discuss matters that affect your health, education, arts and culture and economics. But first, before we delve deeper, let's have the headlines. Now, the ongoing talks on climate change in Poland are taking a lot of time, according to the UN Chief Antonio Guterres. Failure by countries to agree on the rule to implement the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement on global warming could be suicidal. He now says that they have less than 3 days to find the political will to reach the difficult compromises, sacrifices and common ground needed for the deal. A handful of countries at the talks, led by United States and Saudi Arabia, have blocked efforts to endorse the report in question, which many developing countries see as essential. Moving on, at least 55 people have been reported dead in a suicide attack in Kabut, Indonesia. Authorities have stated that 94 people were injured during the attack. The attack happened at Iranian's wedding palace during the birthday celebration of Prophet Muhammad. It has been established that this is one of the deadliest attacks this year. The attack has been described as atrocious and brutal by the United Nations. President Ashraf Ghani has declared that a national mourning day is set aside for victims of the attack and stated that the crime is unforgivable. Zimbabwe is hosting a 10-part photography series. The series will be termed Voices of African Photography and will be presented in partnership with the African Photojournalism Database. It will be a joint project of Everyday Africa and World Press Photo. The aim of the series is to highlight the work of 10 African photographers and photojournalists. Photographer Zinyange Anthony will be taking part in the series. His work has been recognized by Washington Post and Le Monde for his photo on Zimbabwean soldier who was beating a man at the streets of Harare last August when protests erupted in the country. Now, the story of Zimbabwe's photojournalism series brings us to the idea of how much photography is important in bringing out the stories that affect us as a continent. And now the idea of Zimbabwe is bringing out what is happening in the country, including the protests and encouraging peace by showcasing exactly what is happening in the country. Now, coming into Kenya, photography is still such a strange concept for very many Kenyans. However, the likes of Osborne Macharia and Lyra Aoko are putting us as Kenyans on the map. But stories like Ifikie Wazazi makes photography such an immune concept for very many Kenyans, and they see it as such just as a pastime activity. And now today we are talking about photography in Kenya. Is it taken seriously? Can it be a serious career for many people? Also, we're incorporating the idea of social media with the emergence of social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter. Has it brought about a lot more photographers, and has it allowed more photographers to be able to express themselves? Of course, this conversation is going to be going on throughout this episode, and you can reach me on my social media platforms at ByJela on Twitter and at Faith JELAGAT on Facebook. Let's keep the conversation going. Now I can see some comments already streaming in, and that Joanne Mataru is saying, photography is such an important aspect of society and you need to embrace it fully. Yes, let's keep the conversation going, and we will be talking more about photography. In the meantime, our reporter Kevin Kimaili is on ground and has prepared this feature for you. Take a look.
The art of photography is defined as the art of processing images in radiant energy or sensitive surfaces like film. The advent of photography in Kenya began way back to the colonial times with the likes of Mohamed Amin, who was a photojournalist. From that time, the art has grown tremendously to create room for business for many Kenyan photographers. The likes of Osborne Macharia, Lyra Aoko have garnered worldwide recognition for their achievements in the art. For this artist though, photography is not merely snapping of objects, neither is it about cameras. It is an obligation. It is about capturing emotions and the mood of the moment in its utmost unpretentious state. Photography, they tell us, is about recording subtleties that are remembered long after everything else has slipped from memory. There is no better way to express the beauty, the contrast, and the conflict of the universe than through the art of photography. However, the art has faced numerous challenges amidst the winds. For many Kenyans, the art is simple and not necessarily high-paying. Many photographers complain over low incomes and lack of appreciation by those around them. There is a perception that photography is just about clicking a button. This is especially because phones now come with advanced image quality. Therefore, it becomes more and more challenging for photographers to prove themselves. Is it possible for Kenyans to appreciate the art amidst all these technological advances and rise of social media?
I think photography is doing quite well in Kenya. When you look at different platforms in media, you're able to see different pictures people taking. And coming from a communication school like Daystar, I feel the art is much appreciated and taken up seriously. There are very many students who have photography pages and stuff they do photography, which is really good.
The art of photography for many here in Kenya is self-taught. It is one of the disciplines that gets better with time. And with time, we will also see if more Kenyans learn to appreciate fully the art that is photography.
As a real patriotic Kenyan citizen, I think that photography is on a whole nother level as compared to the previous years. And because of westernization, we have really grown. And also because of the social platforms where photographers need to market their own business, I think that, photography has really grown.
For Spot On News, my name is Kelvin Kimaili.
Now we are joined live by Kevin Kimaili, who is on ground in Machakos County. Now Kevin, if you can hear me, what are some of the ideas that people are bringing out about photography?
Well, JELAGAT, that's a question that has two sides to it, because when it comes to social media, yes, we're living at a time where social media is feeding a lot of youths out there. People are living lives on social media, and social media mostly incorporates the taking of photographs, and sometimes people don't care about the kind of photos they take. They use phone photography, all that. I'm not saying phone photography is bad, but there are those who do not just care about the photos. But on the other side, the flip side, there are those who have now created a career out of it, and they're becoming professional photographers, in that they are photographers known to take good photos to go to social media. So it's a 50-50 thing, but also I think if it can go on like this, I think the professional photography issue is going to take the day. Back to you, Faith, in the studio.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin Kimaili, for that comprehensive report. I can already see some of your tweets are streaming in, and I can see here on Facebook at Cynthia Okoth is saying, very informative feature. We have a long way to go when it comes to the art, but we can still get there. Of course, keep talking to us on our social media platforms. You can reach me at ByJela on Twitter and at Faith JELAGAT on Facebook. Now, to help us continue with this conversation on the art of photography in Kenya, we are joined by three very well-equipped people, and from the far left, you can see that is Michelle Gadoni. She is a professional photographer, and right next to her we have Miss Elizabeth Itesi, who is a model and current Miss Peace Daystar University, and at the far right we have Mr. Mike Mushiri, who is a digital content creator. Now, I want to begin with you, Michelle. As a photographer, what is the current state of photography here in Kenya in your analysis?
I think the question we should be asking ourselves is, what's the story? What do you want to tell? Because we're getting lost in the fact that there's so much to do, there's so much to take. There's politics, there's adventure, there's entertainment. Where do you want to be? What story do you want to tell? I think that's where we should start, and then we take it from there.
And finally, Michelle, what can we do to ensure that photography grows here in Kenya to be able to build us as a nation?
I think basically number one, don't just take photos for the sake of taking photos. Make sure your photos tell a story, yeah? And then number two, identify what you want to do. What are you good at? Because there's portrait photography, there's landscape photography, there's nature photography, there's events, as in there's so much to do, and not all of us can do it all. That's why some of us are succeeding, some of us are just there, others are like, this thing maybe is just not for me, yeah? Taking pictures is a story. It's emotion you bring out. You're giving people something they don't see for themselves. So give them a story that will bring them to tears in the end. Make sure there's a start and an ending, and there's emotion to it. So identify where you belong. Number two, bring your story. Number three, bring emotion to it.
And now, Miss Itesi, let us bring you into the conversation. And as a model, I just want to understand from your point of view, has photography helped you build your career as a model?
Yeah, I think photography is the one that helped me to reach where I am. Because if it was not for it, I wouldn't have tried to make the moves I'm making right now. Because I started way back in 2013. Yeah, taking pictures. Some people used to tell me I look like a model, so I tried it out. Then it worked, all because of photography.
And finally, Itesi, I'd want to know, what do you think that we can do to improve the art of photography here in Kenya?
I think working with people who are more creative than them, gaining knowledge from people who have developed more than them, then working with professional models.
Okay, let's bring you in, Mark, to the conversation. And as a digital content creator, I know the concept of social media will be very relevant to you. And what do you think that photography is valued in Kenya at the moment?
Yeah, I think to some extent photography has been valued in Kenya, but at the same time it has been misused because we currently have so many photographers and not professional ones, and some of them are even doing better than the ones who have probably invested their time in studying for photography, and the ones who haven't are somewhat getting an upper hand. Okay, it has been valued, but at the same time I feel like photography needs to be more, it's an art that needs to be taken seriously, in which it has not. But it has, but to some extent it has not been taken seriously. Yeah, that's my take on that question.
Now, finally, Mike, do you think that good imaging and good branding is all keyed in together in terms of bringing out photography?
Yeah, there is definitely a connection between the same, cause good imaging or good images or good pictures, they will make you. I think the better, the more your pictures look good, the larger the audience, the more you get people visiting your profile. Yeah, so it has, yeah, they're connected.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, that has been Michelle Gadhoni, Elizabeth Itesi, and Mike Mushiri. Thank you very much for joining the conversation and for the very insightful ideas you have given us. Thank you so much for your time. And now, moving on, I can see some of your tweets already streaming in from what we have just discussed. And I can see right here on Twitter at Edith Mbenesi is saying, I agree, social media has exposed us to more photographers and we can get to appreciate their art. Of course, let's keep the conversation going. You can reach me on my social media platforms at Bajala on Twitter and also at Faith Jelagat on Facebook. Now, this is my take. Photography is a very important aspect in society because it helps us bring out stories that we need to talk about. And now photography in Kenya needs to grow a bit more in terms of aspects like photojournalism. We need to bring out the stories that affect us as a country, and we need to incorporate more mentorship for the young upcoming photographers. Now, the art of photography is such a beautiful concept, and if we bring it out in the right way and accept mentorship, we will of course prosper in this aspect of photography. Right now we have a lot of platforms where we can learn from and grow, including other areas like Instagram, Facebook and YouTube, where tutorials are now freely provided. We have a long way to go, but we can get there. Now, that story of course brings us to the end of our bulletin. Make sure you incorporate yourself in the conversation, of course, on photography. Tell us what you think your photography is right now in Kenya. You can reach me on my social media platforms on Twitter at Byjala and also on Facebook at Faith Jelagat. Now we have reached the tail end of this program. This has been Spot on News. My name is Faith Jelagat. Until next time.